We are going to shortly connect with Dimitris about Command Professional Edition. Before we get there, JD said a very true thing, that Dimitris is instrumental to that specific part of the business. And I mentioned before, the partners of the company are instrumental to these bits of the business as well. JD, Ian, Eric Routines, Phil. We showed you at the beginning the picture of some of the new personnel and new employees of the company, people that started working with us during the pandemic. I think people are what drive what we do. We try hard to make sure that people we work with and work with us are giving a substantial contribution to the business, to the future of the business. And I think Dimitris will be there to show you, to explain that very, very clearly. Let me connect with Dimitris. Hello, Dimitris.
Hi, guys. Hi, Marco.
Hi. Well, I've got a good news for you. I think we saved 3 or 4 minutes on previous slots. So we've got a bit more time to talk about Command. Let's use these wisely. JD has already kind of laid out what we do as a general picture on the pro work, but you work on Command, and Command. You've been working on Command forever, I think now.
Quite true.
Yeah, and you have now basically 2 babies, right? You have Command Professional Edition, and through grown-up kids, I guess, and Command Modern Operation, which is the consumer version. Do you apply different philosophies and priorities to these 2 versions?
Absolutely, because essentially we're talking about 2 distinct products with different priorities and different philosophies of development, as you said. So the commercial CMO is pretty much a standardized product. It is very much a game on top of a simulation engine, as its player base knows. The user experience and the entertainment value are paramount. We are very careful to deliver a well-curated experience that players will actually pay for. In that vein, we make sure that everyone enjoys the same simulation engine, accompanying data, the content, both the built-in and any subsequent releases. And there is also the fact that because it's a commercial game, it is of course entirely GUI-driven. The graphical user interface is paramount. Although, of course, there is also the ability to use scripting as a means of enriching the scenario. The graphical side is still the premier means of interaction. On the other hand, you have the professional version, which has entirely different focus. It is first and foremost a professional tool. So in that aspect, the simulation engine is front and center. One other thing is that because of the as JD explained, we have very diverse user base. And each customer has different priorities. Some of the customers want to use Command for staff training, officers, etc. Others want to use it for modeling and simulation, for analysis, even more recently for teaching AIs and through machine learning how to improve tactics, etc. So you have a very diverse set of requirements. So by necessity, you have to have a very customizable project. And making Command malleable to each of those different requirements, as JD previously mentioned, has been a key requirement. So you have things like a fully editable database, fully overridable mechanics, the ability to connect Command with any existing other simulations to selectively override any internal sim mechanics. So you can pretty much use as much or as little of the simulation you want. So we're talking about a widely different priority and philosophy of development. Other differences, so for example, Command, by necessity, must be highly automated in order to be used in a professional context. You must be able to run analysis 100,000 times, 100 million times, or as JD mentioned, 200 quadrillion times if necessary. So very different interfaces, completely headless mode of operations, the ability to run in parallel in massive quantities, stretch out to big heavy iron data centers, be able to export massive amounts of data during execution so that you can then run an analysis on them. So all those priorities do not exist on the commercial version. So we're essentially, although the product base is common, it's essentially springing from the same tree, you're essentially talking about two wildly divergent and parallel development paths.
It's also worth noting that you're doing this event whilst preparing for one of the biggest releases of your life. Command Professional Edition 2 is releasing at the end of this month, which is a major milestone for Command itself, for the team, for the pro clients. What kind of, what did you come up with, in terms of new features for Command Professional Edition 2 releasing at the end of this month?
We are positively electrified, I can say that. If you remember, our initial professional release was back in 2016, as JD explained, and I can say with confidence that this is by far the biggest pro release. So there are various different vectors of improvement. So for general usability, Command Pro 2 gets all the goodies of Command Modern Operations. So anyone watching this, you remember what a big deal our 2019 release of CMO was in terms of user interface, usability, all the new maps, all the user interface improvements, everything that made CMO the runaway hit that it was. Then you have additional features that are unique to the Professional Edition, like, for example, the ability to run without administrative powers, a big win for high security systems, obviously. Offline maps, so a user can install Command Pro on a system completely isolated, no need to connect to the internet for any content. And other goodies like easy migration of existing scenarios to new databases, things that our professional customers really care for. On the simulation side, again, CPE gets all the simulation improvements of CMO that our regular players are well familiar with by now. And again, new goodies like a completely new energy-based model for missile kinematics. So anti-air engagements are much closer to what you see in detailed documentaries and expert opinions. Vast improvements in ballistic missiles and ABM interceptors. Vast improvements on ground operations. JD already mentioned that a lot of our work is currently together with the Marine Corps, and for their needs, we have vastly expanded the scope of ground simulation modeling, including distinct ground units, no more substitute of sort of mobile facilities. We are introducing a vastly improved terrain data set, 10 times more detailed than the existing one. Plus new systems like, for example, passive radar, a completely new system which is quite important for modern air defense operations, quite effective against VLO targets as well, and a few other things. On the analysis side, we're offering brand new capabilities. The headless edition, the command line interface, can now be used both in Monte Carlo and interactive mode. So this has been a huge request by our professional customers. They wanted to be able to have the same flexibility to start, stop, query the simulation state, change anything at will, the same capability, the flexibility that they have with the GUI client, but on the headless one, which is much more performant and allows massive parallel execution. So finally, they're getting that. Other things like the massive increase in raw performance. So anyone who has moved from the old CMano to CMO, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with a jump in performance and CPU usage. So this is also now coming to Command Pro, and a few other benefits for better automation. So overall, we are talking about our biggest release, and it's not an exaggeration to say that we are absolutely ecstatic with what we're offering to clients. And every preview customer who has had a chance to evaluate the new version so far has shared that feeling.
It's pretty outstanding what you managed to achieve with your team, and I guess other than not sleeping at all, there are some, secrets in, keeping these two beasts, living alongside each other. How do you do that? I mean, is that a difficult balancing act to switch between the different versions, and what is that these two games have in common, and what differs in, and what can you work on simultaneously? How do you balance the work on these two incredibly detailed products?
It is a balancing act indeed, especially when headlines loom. The different focus and priorities gives us a lot of flexibility in how we manage the development process. It is very rare that we will be working on the same aspect of the product or the simulation engine concurrently on the commercial and civilian fronts. Commercial and professional. So while we may be working on some new simulation feature on the pro side, concurrently we may be working on a new user interface structure on the civilian side. So this allows us a lot of flexibility in how we manage and balance them. The other factor is that with the increased workload that we have and the increased clientele, we've been able to significantly expand the team size. So we've taken additional people, very bright people with which I'm proud to work. And our available bandwidth and overall team velocity has increased. And I think this has been quite evident on the production rate and our output rate, both on the pro side and also on the commercial releases. We are able overall as a team to achieve much more than we could before.
It's one of the things that was interesting is that you went on from a commercial version to a professional version. Now the two things are almost like two separate things, but are commercial, commercial players, civilian players, likely to see any of the big improvements you're doing on the pro version? And what are the features that you're planning to, implement back into the civilian version, going forward?
So this has happened already in quite a few cases. I mean, if you remember our CMO release in 2019, it already contained a few features that were previously exclusive to the professional version. Things like, for example, the ability to merge multiple scenarios together, which was initially an explicit pro request, the ability to visualize the simulation in TAC view, or the addition of the line of sight tool. All of those were previously existing only in the professional version, but we decided to move them to the civilian release as well. And this is a continuing trend. Every time that we add something to the professional version, we have a very serious internal discussion as to whether this makes sense to be moved eventually to the commercial section eventually. Now, this may be done soon after being introduced to Pro. It may take a while. It may take some serious re-implementation because the way that you're presenting it on Pro doesn't really work on Civ. Or it may need to be temporarily shelved while other things are under construction. It is a case-by-case thing. So just to give you some examples of things that are under very strong consideration to come to the commercial release, we have the vastly improved distinct ground units, which we introduced recently on Pro. The ability to use offline maps. We know that this has been a very frequent civilian request. The addition of new systems like PCLS, the passive radar that I previously described. Other new sensor and weapon types. And I guess the elephant in the room is multiplayer. It has been requested at length. It's already in Pro, and we very much want to see it on the commercial section.
It's it's a tricky one, that one, right? The multiplayer. It is not an easy one to implement and to make available for commercial players.
It is very challenging because of the way that Command operates and of the scale that most scenarios operate.
Yeah.
You think of a game like, I don't know, Fortnite, where you have 100 players shooting at each other. 100 players is not even table stakes for Command.
Yeah, it's so big. It's very hard to explain. Sometimes, we find it hard to explain how difficult it is to implement something in a game to our players. They request a feature. They say, "Oh, come on, it's easy." But sometimes it's hard to explain them. I think this is kind of patently super hard. So I don't think they will hold you responsible for delaying that feature, Dimitris. On a final note, Dimitris,
it hasn't stopped us from tackling it head on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And one last thing, Dimitris, is I wanted to quickly touch base on. You've been working on Command for a very long time, and I think that you've showed that the evolution of a product. Never mind the complexity of the product, can still happen if you have ideas and ways of improving a product. What is it that you're most proud of over the years that makes you think, really this is something that I think I'm super proud of and I want to share with my players?
When we see it have a real impact.
Yeah.
On discourse, on defense matters, when we get feedback from people who were previously unaware on a specific subject or poorly informed, and they come back and they tell us that their understanding of a specific issue has radically improved because of their experience with Command. This is the best kind of recognition, together, of course, with the high praise that we get from our contacts in the professional world.
It must be something that is still, exciting you even after all the praises. Every extra praise is really exciting for the team, and I think that the fact that the team has grown so much with really passionate people that you managed to onboard. Is a testament of the fact that Command managed to grow a community of fans that's not only passively playing the game, but it's also contributing massively to the success of the simulation, which is great.
The community has been incredible.
Yeah,
just incredible.
Thank you very much, Dimitris. We'll sure get back to you whenever there's an opportunity, and to celebrate the release of Command the Professional Edition 2 at the end of the month. You'll update us on how it went in beginning of June, so that we'll see how much more relaxed you are after the big release.
Well, there'll always be something to look forward to.
Of course. Thank you very much, Dimitris.
Thanks, guys.
Right, so this brings us to the end of this first part. I'm going to now, give you an outline of what is happening later. Now, it's the first time I'm used to do this, tea time and, our weekly meeting, and I can see the chat and I can see what people say and so on. I don't see the chat, so I don't see what the comments are so far. It's harder for me to interact with everyone, but let me say, now we have a pretty extensive part where we show you games. First of all, we have a video that's kind of chunky video. We show you all the war games we are working on, stuff that's just been released. So we'll start from Warplan Pacific, which has just been released, and we'll guide you through other war games you might know or not know about. There's some announcements there as well, by the way. After that, we have a session about Warhammer 40,000 Battle Sector. I remind you that Warhammer 40,000 Battle Sector has just been released for pre-orders on Steam, and you're going to see today some stuff that we never showed. I promised you that we were going to show stuff that was never showed before, and that you didn't know some of the things about the game, and only today we're showing you part of this, and there will be more as we go. Then we have a Distant Worlds 2 section with the Eric routines. And again, you'll see some pretty cool stuff in action. And then we have the first appearance of Starship Troopers live gameplay. So no pre-recorded, nothing that's pre-made. You will see everything in action with UI, with everything else. So make sure you get ready for that. I'm going to give you 5 minutes or something, and then let's go with this War Games video, and I will see you later for the big announcements. I'll see you later.